In Capital News tonight, President Dr. John Magufuli says the government will not implement lockdown measures. National prayers against the coronavirus pandemic held in Dar es Salaam. And in sports, Simba Sports Club are looking into ways of increasing revenue from its popularity. Good evening, this is Capital News at 9:30. My name is Khadija Zimbwe. First, the national news. President Dr. John Magufuli has addressed heads of defense and security organs while in Chato Geita region on the status of the coronavirus pandemic in the country, where he said the government will not implement lockdown measures in order to curb the coronavirus. In his address, President Dr. John Magufuli commended Tanzanians for responding to directives on preventative measures and for participating in the 3 days of national prayers against the coronavirus pandemic. He also thanked doctors and nurses who have been in the forefront in providing medical services to coronavirus patients.
Palitoka mtu Dar es Salaam mgogo mmoja kwenda kwenye kijiji chake. Alipofika pale akaanza kushambuliwa na wagogo.
There was one person belonging to a Gogo tribe who went to visit his village from Dar es Salaam. He was badly humiliated by his people from accusations that he had brought corona to the village since he came from Dar es Salaam. They nearly killed him, but he ran to a hospital nearby and locked himself there. Unfortunately, many people think that every person who comes from Dar es Salaam has coronavirus. This mentality must be ended. We shall conquer corona if we will all collaborate in this fight. Let us end the panic and believe in God. We shall win the fight just like how we won other fights. Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa has said by April 21st, 2020, Tanzania has recorded 284 coronavirus patients, with 256 patients recovering well and 7 under special observation. Addressing religious leaders in Dar es Salaam who were attending special national prayers at the Karimjee ground against the coronavirus outbreak, Prime Minister said that out of the recorded cases, 11 patients have recovered and 10 have died from the virus.
Hali iliyoko nchini sasa hadi jana tarehe 21 mwezi huu wa 4 mwaka 2020, jumla wagonjwa 284 wamethibitika kuwa na maambukizi ya virusi vya corona.
The situation in the country up to yesterday, the 21st of April, is that a total of 284 patients have been confirmed to have coronavirus. Out of those, 256 are doing well and are being monitored by our doctors. 7 are under close monitoring due to their conditions, and 11 patients have fully recovered, and we've permitted them to return home. The number of deaths to date, both in the mainland and Isles, is 10. We also have done contact tracing to 2,815 people close to those who have been infected, and after monitoring and ascertaining that they were uninfected, we've allowed 1,733 to return home to their families. And out of the 2,815 people, 12 were found to have the virus.
The police force in Songwe has seized a consignment of contaminated cosmetics and baby powder milk worth 121 million shillings hidden in an oil tank of a lorry while being smuggled along the Tunduma border.
Hii ambayo nimesema ni T997 DKG.
This truck belongs to East Africa Warehousing Amson's Group in Dar es Salaam. The driver of this truck has managed to escape, but we have arrested the vehicle. We urge truck owners from employing indiligent drivers. Till right now, the owner of this truck is not aware that his vehicle is at the police station. From this report, if he will be able to watch, he should surrender himself and the driver.
Salimishe, amlete na huyo dereva.
Residents from 9 villages in Uru East and Shimbwe wards, Moshi District, Kilimanjaro region have urged the government to restore road links after the bridge over River Rau, which connects their wards with Moshi Municipal, was destroyed by floods. The residents say that the situation has made it impossible to return to their villages from Moshi Municipal, where they are sheltering without essential needs. People in eastern Uhuru Ward, which have 7 villages, are stuck due to the broken bridge. Not only us, even Shingwe Ward has also been affected, along with its 2 villages. All of us cannot go to Moshi town because we all depend on that one bridge to go to town. The government has reminded reporters in the country to make sure they have met the education requirements needed in the profession by December 2021, as stipulated by the Media Services Act of 2016. The emphasis was made by the Minister of Information, Culture, Arts and Sports, Dr. Harrison Mwakembe, when tabling his ministry's budget estimates for the 2020-2021 financial year.
Kanuni ndogo ya 20A ya kanuni za sheria ya huduma za habari 2017.
News Service Act of 2017 requires all reporters to at least have diploma within 5 years of enactment of the law. That was issued in December 2016. By 2021, that duration will be over. Thus, I take this opportunity to call on all news reporters in the country who have not succeeded to carry on with their duties according to the law to do so immediately, so that they could carry on with their duties after the deadline.
Wafanye hivyo kwa muda uliosalia ili waweze kuendelea na kazi ya uandishi wa habari baada ya muda huo wa mpito kuisha.
President Dr. John Magufuli has appointed Dr. Zainab Abdi Serafin Chaula as the Permanent Secretary of Communication. Prior her appointment, Dr. Zainab Abdi Serafin Chaula was the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health, Community Development, Gender, the Elderly and Children. She replaces Dr. Maria Sasabo, who has retired. President Magufuli has also appointed Professor Daudi Nchembe as the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health and Professor Abel Makubi as the Government Chief Medical Officer. More than 14 associations have decided to provide free lunch and dinner for people in quarantine and health workers at the University of Dar es Salaam's Magufuli hostels. The coordinator of the cause said they were supporting efforts being taken by the government and other stakeholders to deal with the coronavirus pandemic.
We saw that it was important for us to also show cooperation and help the government, so we decided to do this. It is a problem facing all Tanzanians and not any one community, so the Asian community has volunteered to do this.
Kwa hali ambavyo wenzetu wanathamini utu.
I think when people value humanity and the struggles that people go through, they should be commended.
The Minister of State, Second Vice President's Office in Zanzibar, Mohammed Aboud, has announced the government's decision to cancel the Eid Council and ban religious gatherings during the holy month of Ramadan due to the coronavirus pandemic.
Na kukabili mwezi mtukufu wa Ramadhani. Vile vile serikali kwa kuzingatia marufuku uliopigwa mikusanyiko.
The government, taking into consideration the ban on gathering, continues to emphasize on this during Ramadan by banning all iftar activities, all darsas and Eid activities, as well as all activities related to these celebrations. The government also urges parents not to allow their children to go out for any celebratory activities which involve group settings.
And that is the end of national news. International news follows next. And in international news, Kenya has confirmed 7 more cases of the new coronavirus, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 303. 6 of the cases are from Mombasa, while 1 case is from Nairobi, and the latest cases are 707 samples tested in the last 24 hours.
Consider that this past week alone, we have seen significant changes of infections in our own neighborhood, where the COVID-19 cases in Somalia have multiplied 9-fold in a single week, from 26 cases on April 13th to 237 by yesterday.
The Ministry of Health in Uganda has announced that about 41 people have recovered from the coronavirus, with the number of confirmed cases reaching 61. 5 new cases have been reported, with those found to have been infected being foreigners.
When you screen any foreign national, identify them in your country.
Mass graves have continued to be discovered in Burundi, with the head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Ambassador Pierre Clavier and Daikaririe, calling on the citizens of the country to provide information whenever they come across mass graves. This comes as a mass grave of people killed in 1972 was discovered at Mutobo village in Gitega region.
I gave my children plots and showed them how to build. One day, my child Felici was digging a latrine pit, and he found remains and showed me. I told him to rebury them because they were the 72 we had been hearing about. My other child, Chanel, also found remains. When councillors of the commissions were searching for the mass graves, I showed them the areas the remains were found.
And in tonight's special report, Capital Television's Vanessa Victor and political correspondent William Glucroft from our partner Dutch Bell discuss finding the balance between controlling the coronavirus pandemic and addressing other social and economic needs.
A small step back towards normality since implementing strict rules on public life a month ago, it is a delicate balance between controlling the pandemic and addressing other social and economic needs. Getting it wrong could have dire consequences. For more on this, let's turn to William Glucroft, a political correspondent, with our partner Dosh Vele, who joins us from Berlin. William, first off, how are things going? I hope you guys are keeping safe.
We are keeping safe. Lots of hand washing, lots of staying at home when possible, and trying to stick to the rules that government officials are saying we need to stick to if we can hope that the infection will stay where it is and even continue decreasing.
So speaking of the rules, how have the new rules been going around Germany?
Very differently, I should say. In general, the government has agreed to general, very small openings when it comes to small businesses. But because Germany is a federal system, every state has to decide for itself how it's going to implement those rules. For example, here in Berlin, although nationwide schools are not really supposed to be open until May 4th, Berlin has decided to start opening some schools already next week. Even this week, exams are being given for some students. So there's really state-by-state decisions. The big question right now is to mask or not to mask. Some states are putting in place mask requirements when you go out in public. Again, here in Berlin, starting next week, it will be required to wear a mask or face covering of some kind when on public transit. But again, the state of Berlin also says that they can't really realistically enforce that, so they're just hoping that people will respect that rule and do it voluntarily.
That is very similar to some of the measures being implemented here by the Tanzanian government as well. So what are public health officials going to be watching for as public life gets a little bit more relaxed?
Well, of course, the big thing is, will people stick to these distancing rules and hygiene rules? It's important to note that all of the easing of restrictions are dependent on social distancing, washing hands, keeping away from people, wearing a mask, these kinds of things. And government officials are saying you need to follow these rules if you want to go back to school, if you want to go back to shopping, if you want to ride public transit, if you want to go to religious services. All of these things may become possible, but you have to uphold the distancing and hygiene rules. So that's what government officials are going to be looking for, that those rules are being stuck to. And also, of course, the big thing is going to be the infection rate. We heard some slightly negative news that the reproduction number, that's how much the disease is spreading in Germany, this R number, that went up a little bit yesterday from 0.7 last week to 0.9, and government officials, public health officials say that needs to stay below 1 to show that the outbreak is actually slowing and not speeding up. But it's more than just a day-by-day progress. It's really every 2 weeks that government officials have to be checking on things, because that is the presumed incubation period of the virus. So government officials will be looking every 2 weeks. How have the decisions now changed the infection rates and the outbreak, the progress of the outbreak in that time period? And then they'll be making their decisions accordingly, whether to continue easing the rules and returning to public life, or if we have to take a few steps back and re-implement certain restrictions.
So within that, what could be the possible next steps?
Well, as I said, right now, schools look like they're going to be opening in early May, but as I also mentioned, some states are already opening before that. Businesses with smaller floor spaces are being allowed to open already, and then the next step would be bigger businesses, big shopping centers, department stores, these kinds of things. Although again, in Berlin, they've gotten around that by simply limiting the amount of total public space, floor space available to the public. But the wider opening of stores, religious services, churches, these kinds of religious institutions being allowed to have ceremonies and services again, and also gatherings of public gatherings with people, again, holding to these restrictions. These are the kinds of things we can look forward to. Berlin has already said that, at least in the city here, museums will be open again as of May 4th. That's going to be different in other states all around Germany. But really, it's just a return to public life for all the ways you can think, whether it's museums, libraries, movie theaters, and of course cafes and restaurants that are going to stay shut for the foreseeable future. How and when those can open up, again, if they can guarantee distancing and hygiene rules. That's all we have still to look forward to over the next couple weeks.
Well, thank you very much, William, for that report, and I hope you keep staying safe until next time. Bye.
Likewise, thank you.
And that is the end of international news. Business news follows next.
Watch Business Edition as we talk to business leaders and experts in sectors that are transforming Tanzania's economy.
We believe that the driver is the customer.
To change the mindset of traditional HR to the digitalization.
Make sure that everybody can get some access to financial services.
And once we understand the vision of our leaders, we then need to be behind them and help them in achieving that vision.
Business have involved mercantile operations, trade guilds, or shared agricultural production, infrastructure, construction, financial sectors, tourism, and mining. Business Edition on Friday at 8:15 p.m.
Welcome back, and in business news. The Minister of Industry and Trade, Innocent Bashungwa, has directed the police force to arrest and take legal measures against consumers and business people found with oxygen cylinders from Tanzania Oxygen Limited Company, as the government has directed for them to be returned and be filled with oxygen so as to be used by patients with the coronavirus in hospitals.
Anyone with an oxygen tank, either at home or in their office, should communicate with Tanzania Oxygen Limited. They will follow wherever it is to retrieve it, and I ask the police force to help us with this. You cannot receive an oxygen tank which in your agreement you are meant to return, but you repurpose it or do not return it. It is not the property of the public, but the property of Tanzania Oxygen Limited. Once we produce oxygen, we use it mainly to put in cylinders, such as these ones for hospitals. The big challenge we face now is many of the people who take them believe that they have purchased the cylinders, but realistically, this is not true. The company sells gas and not cylinders. They need to be returned to be reused so that they can help other people.
Wholesalers and retailers have commended the government for measures taken to ensure availability of the commodity in the country. They say the measures will help to bring down sugar prices to 3,000 shillings from 4,000 shillings a kilo.
Sugar prices have dropped down slightly from 145,000 to 135,000, and we will be selling it for 3,000 shillings per kilo, whereas before we were selling it for 3,500 to 4,000 shillings. This drop in price benefits both us and consumers. Sugar prices have dropped just a few weeks ago. Wholesalers were selling it for 3,200 shillings per kilogram, leading retailers to sell it for up to 4,000 shillings after additional costs such as transport. Now, wholesalers are selling for 2,700 shillings per kilo.
And Kishna farmers from Mayanga Ward, Mtwara Mikindani Municipal have urged the government to address the issue of distribution of agriculture inputs, which has been affected by the coronavirus pandemic.
You think to yourself, will it get to a point where cashew nuts are sold this year due to the virus? So government leaders need to come here and push them. Inputs coordinated were at the last stages, and if the process goes smoothly, things will be good by next week. This matter was being coordinated by the Cashew Nut Board along with cooperative unions.
And that is the end of business news. Sports news follows shortly.
Away first time, good start from Bolt. Bolt leading a moment and going away. Gay trying to go with him and he's going being dragged through to second place, but he's going to win it by 2 meters. Away first time, good start from Bolt. Bolt leading a moment and going away. Gay trying to go with him and he's going being dragged through to second place, but he's going to win it by 2 meters. Joaquinho, he did lose to Lem.
Welcome back, and in sports news. Simba Sports Club are looking into ways of making revenue from its popularity after being announced the 8th most popular club in Africa on social media.
When we have the database and then connect it with our link, then people can get information and everything. Instead of subscribing to others, all Simba information can be found from us through our website and Simba's application, both of which are coming very soon.
Tanzania Paralympic swimming team will miss the opportunity of participating in the championships this June in Berlin following the decision reached between the organizers and the World Paralympic Association to postpone the games.
We cannot do that now due to the report we received from the hosts as well as World Paraswimming that the competition has been postponed. The competition was only one remaining in the series of world competitions prior to the Tokyo Paralympics.
Barcelona's stadium will have a formal name for the first time in its 63-year existence after the club announced plans to sell next season's rights and hand the proceeds to charitable activities and fight against coronavirus.
Which means the new ground became the de facto name of Barca Stadium after it was inaugurated in 1957, later rubber-stamped in a members' referendum. Now it will get a surname as the club seeks a sponsor for 2020-2021, a first step towards the sale of the naming rights as construction begins on a new 105,000 capacity stadium, which they hope to have completed on the same site within 4 years. The current Camp Nou is Europe's largest football stadium. Barcelona announced that they will cede the title rights to the club's charitable foundation, which will manage the process.
Serge Aurier and Moussa Sissoko have apologized for causing Tottenham further embarrassment after a video showed the pair flouting government guidelines on coronavirus. Here are more details.
A little over 2 weeks after Jose Mourinho was pictured holding a one-on-one training session in North London with Tanguy Ndombele, Aurier and Sissoko became the latest Spurs personnel to breach physical distancing rules after a video on the former's Instagram story showed them training alongside each other. Aurier, who was wearing a mask, has since deleted a clip in which he can be seen running shuttles and sitting next to his teammates. The government has made it plain during the coronavirus pandemic that outdoor exercise can be undertaken only alone or with people from the same household.
And that's what ends our news bulletin for tonight. My name is Khadija Zimbwe. Thank you for watching and good night.